In today's video, my 5 favorite hacks to reduce hunger when you're in a caloric deficit. You're trying to lose body fat like I do, going from something like this to something like this, and you want to make it as painless as possible. Let's start right now. In today's video, guys, I want to break down the idea of controlling our calories without the stress of being hungry all the time. I want to talk a little bit about some nutrition hacks, some cardio hacks, some meal timing hacks. I want to talk about our lifestyle approach, even some supplements that we can take that can really help control our hunger, which is obviously what's most important, because what creates fat loss? The caloric deficit. Now, a lot of people think of the calories that we take in, but you can also think of the calories that we burn, and not only through exercise, but through sleep and through non-exercise activity, which can actually be increased based on a few of these little tricks. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why am I on this treadmill? This is something that I do every day. And I discovered a few years ago when I was getting ready for a bodybuilding competition that through the use of high intensity cardio, my hunger would skyrocket. I would have these intense bouts of insatiable hunger when I was doing high intensity cardio, which is short bouts of all out sprint, followed by a recovery period. Now, for a while, this was very in vogue because you burned so many more calories in these little short, intense sessions. But what we didn't realize at the time was that you burned less calories throughout the rest of the day. You also increased your hunger. So now you're fighting yourself. So what I have found is that by putting a treadmill in my office, or some people have walking pads under their desk, some people have standing desks. I've tried that. I still like to sit when I work. But the idea is that we're burning calories in a manner that does not increase our hunger. In fact, research shows that low intensity steady state, like walking, can reduce cravings, remove your hunger for something like chocolate, and it can also produce some hormones that keep you feeling fuller. So low intensity steady state, as silly as it might sound to some people, actually helps. Now, I've tried this. When I'm dieting down, I'll show you a video of me at my absolute most shredded. What I would find is that when I would get distracted by hunger, and I'm trying to work or do something productive, what would happen is that I would get up, do a little bit of a cardio session, 15 minutes or so, sit back down. Because I got my blood moving, my hormones in a better spot, I could actually focus on work and hunger would be gone. So my first tip is, don't be afraid of movement, especially low intensity movement, to help reduce hunger. One of the more obvious ones when we talk about diet and food is going to be our fiber intake. Fiber slows down the digestive process, makes us feel full. Now, just like with anything, too much can be bad. But if you include some key foods, things like oatmeal, raspberries, lentils, I like beans, some vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, in small amounts, you don't want to overdo it, can really help when you're talking about creating meals that are going to keep you full for a long period of time. This, in turn, is going to help you avoid reaching for food, snacking, or even feeling the psychological need to eat something. Because when we're dieting down, I think a lot of us fear that feeling of hunger. Like, I can't handle being hungry. Oftentimes when people see me, they say, oh, I'd love to look like that, but I can't deal with being hungry. A lot of times it's just the strategies that we employ around our nutrition, our lifestyle. And let's talk about lifestyle. Research shows us that sleep can actually drastically reduce the amount of calories that people take in. A research study I found where the people weren't tracking their calories, but they were being tracked by the researchers. The people that slept an average of 1.2 hours longer than the other group, so 6.5 hours or less, or over 8 hours, the group that slept 8 hours actually consumed 270 less calories. And guess what? You also burn more calories while you're sleeping. So the idea here is that you don't necessarily even have to eat less. You just get a little bit better night's sleep. Those hunger hormones are going to be controlled and you're going to feel better throughout the day. Probably also going to burn a few extra calories because with more energy, your non-exercise activity increases. Now let's talk about 2 things that I find to be very real world and applicable. We can talk about all the stuff that's healthy, sleep, fiber, great. But something that I have found over the years that really greatly helps me is including something throughout the day that makes me feel satisfied, both with my sweet tooth and my hunger, and also I just enjoy. Now, I like to reach for a diet soda like this. Most of these have 0 calories. Diet Mountain Dew being my favorite, okay? So how does this help? Well, not only do I get the sensory benefit of having something sweet, but the carbonation also makes me feel a little bit fuller. And also, it's got caffeine. Now, caffeine has been shown to do a couple of things. One, boost your metabolism. What is your metabolism? It's just the rate at which we burn calories. So why would caffeine help us with our metabolism? Well, what does caffeine do? It increases our alertness and slightly reduces our hunger. Now, that benefit's not going to be a huge benefit, but when we're talking about your hunger and losing body fat, a slight benefit for someone like me is very noticeable. So if you start including some diet beverages throughout the day, perhaps something with caffeine, and if you are anti-soda, I get that, I'm not, but you can use things like tea and coffee, okay? You're getting the benefit of boosting the metabolism, reducing hunger throughout the day, and sometimes between your meals, that's all you need, is just something to get you through. Now, the final thing is something that I also discovered, because when I first got into this sport or the idea of bodybuilding, there was this theory that small meals throughout the day helped to boost your metabolism. Research is very clear. When calories and cardio are equal, there is no difference if you eat once a day or 17 times a day. So what is the real benefit to the smaller meals? Well, broken up throughout the day, your digestion might improve a little bit, but when you are dieting down to get leaner, I find that these smaller meals increase your hunger. In fact, they increase your anger. Why? Because as soon as you eat that little tiny meal of 300 calories, you're starving, versus what I prefer to do, which is 3, maybe 4 very large meals throughout the day. These larger meals, although the gap between them is going to be a little bit longer, what we find is that hunger is most closely associated with your pattern of eating. So if you eat every day at noon and it's 1 o'clock, you're going to be hungry. So what if we just have our large meals spaced throughout the day systematically to improve our likelihood of success? Now, the final thing, probably the most obvious for most of you guys, girls out there, high protein. Protein is great on calories. It's got less than half the calories of a fat gram, but it's also going to keep you full. It takes a while to digest. It's got some other benefits like lean body mass. So, doing things like working out, exercising, playing a sport, you're going to benefit from a little extra protein. So how much protein? That's probably the most common misconception out there. Here's an easy rule to go by. What is your goal weight? What do you want to weigh on the day where you look your absolute best? Set your protein there per grams. For example, I'm about 215 pounds right now. My most shredded weight is probably 195 to 200. So I just focus on getting around 200 grams of protein a day. Even when my weight gets up to 240, 250, there's real no anabolic benefit to eating 250 grams of protein for me. I prefer to get more from my fats, carbohydrates to benefit my hormones, my performance in the gym. But hey, there are some days where my protein goes up a little bit, and you can even eat a little bit less and be just fine. But if you're focusing on these key factors, you can really reduce your hunger throughout the day and have a high likelihood of success. Now, if you want some support, guys, our Transformation Challenge is open. I'm going to put a link below. We've got hundreds of meal plans, training plans, a private support group. I myself am going to be doing a live video in there this week. The goal for the next 90 days is to help you reach the physique that you're after. And heck, it's open worldwide, and we're giving away $25,000. So what do you got to lose? Join me, join the team, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.